Welcome to the Heavy Spoilers Show. I'm your host Deffinition, and you're now logged into the channel where we break down all the latest movies, new game releases, TV shows and comic books. Throughout this video we're going to be discussing everything that you need to know about the 2019 Korean film Parasite, as well as its ending. There will be heavy spoilers here, so if you haven't had a chance to watch the movie yet and don't want to know what happens, then I highly recommend that you turn off now. With that out of the way, I just want to give a huge thank you for clicking this video. Now let's get into our breakdown of Parasite. Parasite centers around the Kims, a family that live on the poverty line, barely getting by, living in a bug-infested basement and forced to do all kind of menial jobs in order to get enough money to live day to day. At its core, Parasite is a tale of two families. Well, three, which I'll get into later, but primarily it centers around an extremely poor father, mother, son and daughter, and a very wealthy one made up of the same archetypes. The Kims are Kai-taek, the father, Chung-suk, his wife, son Ki-woo, who later becomes known as Kevin, and Ki-jung, the daughter. One day, Ki-woo's friend gives him a large rock that is supposed to bring them luck and wealth. Whilst doing it, he also informs Ki-woo that he's leaving to study abroad, and one of his clients, Dahai, requires English tutoring. Ki-woo hasn't got any qualifications in this, as his friend knows. However, he says that he knows enough English to fake it, and after Ki-woo falsifies documents with his sister, he gains employment with the Parks. Ki-woo, who now goes as Kevin, really catches the eye of Dahai, and he also massively impresses Mrs. Park, who divulges that she is struggling to find an art teacher for her son Daesung, who she believes is a genius. Daesung has had a pretty messed up childhood due to the fact that when he was younger he saw a ghost in the house, and this has scarred him for life. Kevin tells Mrs. Park that he knows of a brilliant art tutor that he will inquire about, and along with his sister they carry out the same scam. The title Parasite comes from the fact that by the midpoint of the movie, Kevin has managed to get his entire family roles in the home by each member recommending the next one, and they concoct devious ways in order to get the workers at the parks fired in order for them to take their place. The con is on, and the first hour of the film has a real dark sense of humour to it as we watch the group faking TB infections and sex scandals in order to basically develop a parasitic relationship with the family in which the Kims can live off their wealth. Watching them manipulate the parks is fascinating, and early on the movie will really get its hooks into you, and I found it hilarious just how much doubt they seeded in the parks by simply placing tomato ketchup on tissues and so on. It's a really unique and original premise, and it's no surprise that the film is getting high praise across the board. I've never really seen a movie that could be described as both a thriller and a comedy, and Parasite is extremely innovative whilst also possessing characters that you can really relate to. Kevin gets Dahai to fall in love with him, and each family member gains the trusts of the Parks, which all leads to one fateful night when they decide to go on a camping trip. They leave the property in the care of Chung-suk, who along with the rest of the family decides to spend the night checking out how the other half live. However, the household's previous cleaner arrives, saying that she left something in the basement and that she will only be a moment while she goes to get it. Moon Gwang, the cleaner, reveals that there is actually a secret bunker under the building that the Parks don't know about, and that her husband has been hiding down there for years, operating light switches and so on to make the house seem like it runs automatically. He sends subtle messages such as Morse code that subliminally let the occupiers know that he is there, and it keeps him happy, providing a safe place for him to live as he hides from loan sharks who've been after him all this time. It's where the film takes a real sharp turn, and I was open-mouthed throughout the reveal of it. I've heard a lot of horror stories about people secretly living in attics and so on for decades without the occupiers knowing, and watching it play out in the film was brilliant. Moon Gwang, which full disclosure, I've probably pronounced everyone's name wrong up until this point, discovers that the Kims are also pulling a scam on the Parks, and she attempts to blackmail them, saying that she won't tell the family as long as they sneak her husband food and don't tell the Parks about him. This blows over into a big fight, with the Kims managing to delete the footage off the phone that Moon Gwang takes as evidence, but just as they look like they're in the clear, the Parks call and say that they are coming home early due to a bad storm in the area, and this has bigger repercussions later. There's a mad dash to clean up the house, like when you were a teenager and had a house party and your parents said they'd be home earlier than you expected, so you rushed around clearing things. I'll never forget that one bottle cap that I left out that got me caught. Anyway, there's two sort of sides to this, with a mad scramble going on behind the family's back, whilst Chung Suk paints out that everything is fine, even going so far as to kick Moon Gwang down the stairs in order to get her out the way. It's hilarious for all the wrong reasons, and during this scene, Mrs. Park informs Chung Suk about Da Song's ghost, who at this point we now know is Moon Gwang's husband. The other three Kims hide under a large table in the living room, and the Parks crash out on the sofa, which is where Mr. Park reveals that Kai-taek has a smell about him that makes him stink. It's a poor smell, smells of rags, smells worse than this channel that just goes about spoiling movies. Anyway, they do a bit of fondling and crash out, and the Kims are able to escape. However, they're not out of the woods yet, and the group get home to find their basement flooded, probably with that guy's urine who keeps weeing next to their house. Do they say weeing in America? I don't know. Anyway, back at the Parks' home, Moon Gwang dies from her concussion right in front of her husband, who Kai-taek tied up. Everything at the Kims is destroyed, completely washed by the rain, and it's kinda crazy watching them going from this lavish fantasy life to the depressing circumstances of reality. It's what makes Parasite so endearing and memorable, and looking at the desperate situation of the Kims reminds us that anything can go from great to terrible in a matter of moments. Kevin picks up the rock that brought him wealth and fortune in the home, and they have to sleep in a community shelter surrounded by poor and desperate families like them. The picture often portrays the poor as bug-like, crawling around, swarming with one another, and whilst that may carry negative connotations, it's very much the opposite, portraying the human side of just how horrible living day to day can be. It's a sympathetic view that shows that everyone is desperate to make money, some just happen to be more lucky than others. Watching Da Song wake up in a tent in the garden, juxtaposed with the Kims waking up in an overcrowded gym, just shows how big the divide of wealth is within the world, and the subtext definitely makes you feel sorry for the Kims. This is a situation that's very much about keeping up appearances though, and the next day Mrs. Park throws a party for Da Song and invites many people including the Kims. Kevin sneaks off and carries the rock down to the basement, intending to give the good luck to others, but Gwen Se, Moon Gwang's husband, grabs him round the throat with a rope, smashing his head with the rock and then going to the party. He stabs Ki Jong, and this dramatic appearance triggers Da Song's trauma and he has a seizure. Kai-taek rushes to stop Ki Jong's bleeding, and Mr. Park shouts at him, saying that he has to drive Da Song to the hospital, but he doesn't move, instead throwing the keys to the car at him, which are blocked by Chung Suk, who at the time is fighting Gun Se. Chung Suk manages to kill him, but as Mr. Park goes over to retrieve the keys, he is repulsed by the smell, and this reminds him of Mr. Park's comments, which have clearly been playing on his mind, and he runs over and stabs him, fleeing from the situation after murdering him. It really goes from 0 to 100, and this scene is one of the biggest left turns that I've ever seen in a film. It really keeps you on your toes, and though it's pretty short-lived, it's very memorable and cements just how unpredictable that Parasite is. Both Ki Jong and Mr. Park die from their wounds, and Kevin awakens in hospital after receiving brain surgery. He suffers from damage and has developed a twitch, laughs uncontrollably, and at the trial with his mother, the two are found guilty of fraud and put on probation. Ki-taek is still at large, wanted for the murder of Mr. Park, though the authorities have not been able to locate him. They tail Kevin, who still keeps a close eye on the Parks' house, and one day notices one of the lights flickering, spelling out a message in Morse code that he fled to the basement and has been living down there this entire time. He buried Moon Gwang, and there have been new occupiers that Kai-taek needs to sneak around in order to survive. Kevin promises to become extremely rich and earn enough money one day to buy the house himself so that he can free his father, but this just seems to be a fantasy, and in reality Kevin is still stuck in the basement from the start of the film, much like his father, who too remains in one, paying the price for the family's lies. The film is very much circular, with the Kims, most notably Kai-taek, once more relegated to living off the wealth of others. Now, will Kevin eventually earn enough money to buy the house? Though we don't know for definite, it is safe to assume from the director's comments that he will not, and that Kai-taek will be trapped down there until the end of his days. When discussing the film's ending, the director stated that he had one of two options for how to close it out: the scene that we saw where the family reunites, or the one in the basement, showing the harsh reality of it. He He chose the latter to hammer home that the prior was just a fantasy dreamed up by Kevin, who has discarded the rock, possibly losing the luck that comes with it, if there is such a thing. Thus we can draw from this that the downtrodden ending of the film hammers home that Kevin will forever be stuck in that basement, unable to escape the trappings of poverty, where the two will remain, barely getting by, scrapping on food in order to live one more day. Now, you could have easily cut when the two reunited, and this would have finished the film with a happy ending. However, to have it go on longer than it does definitely cements to me that this is a tale of reality, wrapped in a fantasy, and Kevin will likely never complete his goals due to his fraud conviction, brain damage, and inability to move beyond the house. He will likely still obsess over it and spend the majority of his time there rather than working in order to build his fortune, and his father will be trapped in the basement hiding from the authorities. It's kinda heartbreaking, and it's also what makes Parasite so special. With Kai-take, you kinda wonder, would he not be better off in prison, as he's gonna be stuck in a cage either way. At least in jail though, his family will be able to visit him. This is a very off-the-wall movie that is both unique in its premise and the way that the plot plays out, and it makes for a memorable journey that is laced with sadness throughout that reminds us of just how good and bad that some people have it. Parasite is incredible, and it's easy to see why it's being labelled by many as the best film of the year. There's very little to fault here, and with there being so much in Hollywood that is formulaic and repetitive, this is a breath of fresh air in terms of storytelling. Parasite is a masterpiece, and it will likely be brought up in many conversations for years to come, with people asking, have you seen Parasite, before going into just how good it is and how the person that they're speaking to has to go and see it. This is a brilliant film and one of the best movies of the year so far, and that's why it gets a perfect 10 out of 10. Now obviously I'd love to hear your thoughts on Parasite and what you took from the ending. I've heard a couple of people say that it's very much like Inception, where it's completely ambiguous, so if you think the opposite to me or agree with me, then make sure you leave your theory in the comments below, and if you enjoyed this video then please give it a thumbs up, and don't forget to check out my full breakdown of this weekend's big release at Dr. Sleep, which will be linked at the end. We go over everything that you need to know about the movie, so it's definitely worth checking out if you want to know more. If you want to come chat to me after the video, then make sure you follow me on Twitter at DeffinitionYT, or head over to my Discord server, which will be linked in the description below. Those are the best ways to keep up to date with all the latest videos on the channel, so hopefully I see you over there very soon. We're also giving away a free copy of the Marvel Phase 3 Part 1 box set on Blu-ray, which contains Civil War, Doctor Strange, Homecoming, Ragnarok and more, and all you have to do to be in with a chance of winning is like the video, make sure that you subscribe to the channel, and leave your thoughts on Parasite in the comments section below. The winner is going to be chosen on the 15th of November, and the set will be shipped out from then to whoever gets the prize, so best of luck to everyone who takes part. This is the channel for people who are mad into movies, so if that's the kind of thing you like, hit subscribe. Thanks again for taking the time to watch this. I've been Deffinition, you've been the best, and I'll see you next time. Take care, peace.